Been proudly serving the people of this community since 1918. Service is our motto. The poor, the rich, the middle class and all are given the best of care and attention at all times. You have the privilege to select what you want. In your time of need, contact the capable, the competent, and the dependable staff of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home who is genuinely concerned with your care. At J.W. Williams Funeral Home, you are aptly served by the proprietor president, Deacon Arthur L. Parker, who continues the traditions and values set forth by the past president, Dr. Napoleon Williams. Your announcers for the J.W. Williams Funeral Home Sunday morning program are Deacon Arthur L. Parker, Reverend Isaac H. Owens, Mrs. Calandra Wilkerson Parker, Minister Frankie Harmon, Miss Sandra Johnson, and Deacon Earl Clark, Jr.
Thank you, and good morning, friends. We come to you this morning to bring announcements, dedications, and songs. We certainly hope that your day may be brighter after listening to our program. The family of United States Marine Corps veteran, Mr. Dwayne L. Smith, Sr., of Saline, Kansas, and Vienna, Georgia. The family of United States Army veteran, Mr. Collie Will Hopper, Sr. of Americus, Georgia. The family of United States Army veteran, Mr. Harry T. Gaines of Cordele, Georgia, would like to thank their many friends for the food, the flowers, the condolences, and all other expressions of sympathy and kindness shown to them during their hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. United States Marine Corps veteran, Mr. Dwayne Leon Smith, Sr., age 61, of Saline, Kansas, formerly of Vienna, Georgia, died Thursday, March 3rd, in Saline, Kansas. The funeral service for United States Marine Corps veteran, Mr. Dwayne Leon Smith, age 61, was held Sunday, March 20th, graveside at the Vienna City Cemetery in Vienna, Georgia. The Reverend Dr. Bobby G. West, pastor of the Bethel Baptist Church, officiated. Survivors include his loving and devoted wife, Mrs. Gloria Jean Collins Smith of Wichita, Kansas. His loving children, Mr. Dwayne L. Smith, Jr., and Mrs. Lakeia Williams, and her husband, Mr. Terrell Williams, both of Wichita, Kansas. 7 beloved grandchildren, his loving and devoted sisters, Mrs. Patricia Hill of Cordele, Georgia, Miss Sanithia Redding, and Miss Tabitha Carter, both of Vienna, Georgia. Miss Sabrina Smith of Warner Robins, Georgia, and Miss Katina Bennett of Apopka, Florida. His beloved brothers, Mr. Wayne Smith and his wife, Mrs. Melissa Smith of Leesburg, Georgia, Mr. Michael Hardy and his wife, Mrs. Adrian Hardy of Cordele, Georgia, Mr. Kelvin Smith of Pittsburgh, Kansas, and Mr. Curtis Smith of Vienna, Georgia. His beloved aunts and uncles, Mr. Carol Smith, Mrs. Betty Lord, Mrs. Ruby Jones, Mrs. Virginia Price, Miss Kathy Dixon, Mrs. Barbara Thomas, Miss Linda Hill, Miss Bobby Jean Bembry, and her husband, Mr. John Henry Bembry, Mr. Ricky Smith, Mr. Ricky Hill, Mr. Randall Hill, Mr. Bobby Joe Smith, Mr. Edward Smith and his wife, Mrs. Martha Smith, and Mr. Joseph Smith. A host of beloved nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. United States Marine Corps veteran, Mr. Dwayne Leon Smith Sr., age 61, of Saline, Kansas, formerly of Vienna, Georgia. United States Army veteran, Mr. Collie Will Hopper Sr., age 67, of 305 Brookdale Drive, Americus, Georgia, died Wednesday, March 9th at the Carl Vinson VA Medical Center in Dublin, Georgia. The memorial service for United States Army veteran Mr. Collie Will Hopper Sr., age 67, was held Friday, March 25th at the Andersonville National Cemetery in Andersonville, Georgia. Bishop Melvin McCluster, pastor of the Friendship Baptist Church, officiated. Survivors include his beloved mother of his children, Mrs. Ann Reddick Hopper of Americus, Georgia. His loving and devoted children, Mr. Collie W. Hopper Jr. and Miss Ashley L. Hopper, both of Atlanta, Georgia. His beloved grandson, Mr. Charlo Smith of Atlanta, Georgia. His loving and devoted sisters, Miss Mary Jane Ward and her husband, Mr. Arthur Ward, and Miss Marilyn Thomas, both of Americus, Georgia. And Miss Tammy Holmes of Atlanta, Georgia. A beloved brother, Mr. John Edward Hopper of Las Vegas, Nevada. A host of other relatives and many, many sorrowing friends survive. United States Army veteran, Mr. Collie Will Hopper Sr., age 67, of 305 Brookdale Drive, Americus, Georgia. United States Army veteran, Mr. Harry T. Gaines, age 73, of 710 East 13th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Sunday, March 20th at the Chris Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service with military honors was held Saturday, March 26th, graveside at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. The Reverend Dr. Dan James III, pastor of the Mount Zion First African Missionary Baptist Church, officiated. Survivors include his loving and devoted children, Mr. Mojek Pittman of Cordele, Georgia, Mr. Landon Pittman of Iowa, and Miss Melissa Gaines of Cordele, Georgia. 13 beloved grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren, a beloved and devoted sister, Ms. Dorothy Williams of Cordele, Georgia, a beloved brother, Mr. James Gaines of Cordele, Georgia. His devoted nieces and nephews, Mr. Perry Gaines of Massachusetts, Ms. Diana Blackburn, and Miss Vita Angel Gaines, both of Belglade, Florida. Miss Deetra Gaines of Leesburg, Georgia, and Mr. Timothy Butts of Cordele, Georgia. His beloved cousins, Mr. Lawrence Gaines, Mr. Alvin Gaines, and Mr. Derek Jones, all of West Palm Beach, Florida. And Mr. John Manning of Cordele, Georgia. A host of other relatives and many, many sorrowing friends survive. United States Army veteran, Mr. Harry T. Gaines, age 73, of 710 East 13th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. Again, the family of United States Marine Corps veteran, Mr. Dwayne L. Smith, Sr. of Vienna, Georgia. The family of United States Army veteran, Mr. Collie Will Hopper, Sr. of Americus, Georgia. The family of United States Army veteran, Mr. Harry T. Gaines of Cordele, Georgia, would like to thank all of their many friends for all of the many kindnesses shown to them during the hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. May God bless each of you is their prayer. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors serving Cordele and Vienna were in charge of each of these arrangements during the past week. And now, it is certainly with the deepest regret that we make the following announcement. Miss Ultra May Patrick, age 63, of 1612 South 10th Street, Cordele, Georgia, died Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022, at the home of her beloved daughter. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Miss Colette Mitzi Hinton and her husband, Mr. Clifford Hinton, and Mrs. Clea Byram and her husband, Mr. Ronnie Byram, both of Cordele, Georgia, Miss Twyla Smith of Alexandria, Virginia, Mrs. Kimberly Trotman and Mr. James Trotman, Jr., both of Cordele, Georgia. 10 loving grandchildren, her loving and devoted mother, Mother Grace Adams Patrick of Cordele, Georgia. Her beloved sisters, Mrs. Clara Woodard and Mrs. Betty Savage and her spouse, Miss Bridget Savage, all of St. Petersburg, Florida. Mrs. Sheila Butts and her husband, Mr. Robert Butts of Cordele, Georgia. Her beloved brothers, Mr. Kareem Al and of St. Petersburg, Florida, Mr. Arthur Patrick of Hollywood, Florida, Mr. Sam Savage and his wife, Mrs. Frances Savage of Chicago, Illinois, Mr. Gary Franklin, Mr. Wilbert Franklin and his wife, Mrs. Verna Franklin of Atlanta, Georgia, and Mr. Lorenzo Patrick and his wife, Mrs. Angie Patrick of Canada. A host of devoted nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends, to include a special friend, Mr. James Trotman of Cordele, Georgia, survived Miss Ultra May Patrick, age 63, of 1612 South 10th Street, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Miss Ultra May Patrick, age 63, will be held today, Sunday, March 27th at 1 p.m. graveside at the Sunnyside Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. Her pastor, the Reverend Lorinda Ray, pastor of the beautiful Zion Baptist Church, will officiate. Mrs. Brenda K. Didell Tatum, age 62, of 4644 Juniper Court, Lancaster, California, died Saturday, March 5th in Lancaster, California. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Mr. Travis Terry of Albany, Georgia, Mr. Daniel Tatum III of Arizona, Mr. Xavier Michael Tatum of Barkersville, California, Miss Hannah Candace Tatum of Alexandria, Virginia, and Mr. Caleb Christian Tatum of Lancaster, California. A beloved grandson, Mr. Devin Terry of Kennesaw, Georgia. A host of other relatives and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mrs. Brenda K. Dardell Tatum, age 62, of 4644 Juniper Court, Lancaster, California. The funeral service for Mrs. Brenda K. Dardell Tatum, age 62, will be held Monday, April 4th at 12 noon at the Andersonville National Cemetery in Andersonville, Georgia, with the minister selected officiating. Mr. William Jernigan, Jr., age 85, of 607 Eastview Circle, Americus, Georgia, died Thursday, March 24th at the Phoebe Sumter Medical Center in Americus, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted children, Mr. Calvin Jernigan and his wife, Mrs. Beverly Jernigan of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Mr. Patrick Jernigan and Miss Teresa Jernigan Chapman, both of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Miss Edith McDonald, Miss Yolanda McDonald, and Mr. Carl McDonald, all of Americus, Georgia. 10 beloved grandchildren, a host of other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends, to include a special friend, Mr. Sammy Parker of Americus, Georgia. Survived Mr. William Jernigan Jr., age 85, of 607 Eastview Circle, Americus, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. William Jernigan Jr., age 85, will be held Saturday, April 2nd, graveside at the Antioch Baptist Church in Plains, Georgia, with the minister selected officiating. United States Army veteran, Mr. Cecil Lester Jr. of 306 Dennett Street, Unadilla, Georgia, died Friday, March 25th at Atrium Navison Health in Macon, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted children, Mr. Kenyatta Hinton and his wife, Mrs. Sonia Hinton of Unadilla, Georgia, Miss Cecilia Lester of Vienna, Georgia, Mr. Cecil Lester III of Albany, Georgia, Mr. Jared Lester and Mrs. Shakari Walker and her husband, Mr. Reginald Walker of Byram, Georgia. 9 beloved grandchildren, his loving and caring sibling, Miss Ruby Lane and Miss Josephine Green, both of Pinehurst, Georgia, Mrs. Linda Jordan and her husband, Mr. Earl Jordan of Vienna, Georgia, Mr. Alvin Lester and his wife, Mrs. Laura Lester, Mr. Wilbert Lester and his wife, Mrs. Wanakee Lester, and Mrs. Tammy Lewis and her husband, Mr. Robert Lewis, all of Pinehurst, Georgia. Mr. Lewis Walker and his wife, Mrs. Wanda Walker of Moultrie, Georgia. A beloved God sister, Miss Mary Nell Taylor of Unadilla, Georgia. A host of devoted nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing Friends survive. United States Army veteran, Mr. Cecil Lester Jr. of 306 Dennard Street, Unadilla, Georgia. The funeral service for United States Army veteran, Mr. Cecil Lester Jr., will be announced at a later date pending the completion of the arrangements. Deacon Eddie B. Woodson, age 68, of 311 North 7th Street, Vienna, Georgia, died Saturday, March 26, at the Piedmont-Macon Hospital in Macon, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted wife, Mrs. Linda Chives Woodson of Vienna, Georgia, his loving and devoted daughters, Miss Leah Claybrook and her husband, Sir Lawrence Claybrook of Augusta, Georgia, Miss Natasha Woodson of Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, Miss Shanika Chives of Vienna, Georgia, and Miss Tiana Johnson of Pleasantville, New Jersey. His loving and caring brothers, Mr. Cardell Woodson of Trenton, New Jersey, and Mr. Irish Kennedy of Warner Robins, Georgia. 8 beloved grandchildren, 5 great-grandchildren. His loving and caring brothers, Mr. Bob Woodson of Atlanta, Georgia, Mr. Germany Woodson and his wife, Mrs. Barbara Woodson of Stockbridge, Georgia, and Mr. Thomas Woodson of Newark, New Jersey. His beloved sisters, Mrs. Patricia Grady and her husband, Mr. Edward Grady of Oregon, Miss Laura Lester and her husband, Mr. Alvin Lester of Pinehurst, Georgia. A host of devoted nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends, to include the New Light Church family and the Power Deliverance Church family, survive. Deacon Eddie B. Woodson, age 68, of 311 North 7th Street, Vienna, Georgia. The funeral service for Deacon Eddie B. Woodson, age 68, will be announced at a later date pending the completion of the arrangements. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors, serving Cordele and Vienna, are in charge of each of these arrangements during this week. Friends, that conclude our funeral notices for this morning. And as always, we do remind you concerning pre-funeral arrangements planning available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home, with packages available with a single pay, a 3-year pay, a 5-year pay, and a 10-year pay. So please stop by and talk with us concerning your pre-funeral arrangements needs available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. And also whole life insurance is available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home.
And now for our announcements. The New Poplar Spring Baptist Church extends a cordial invitation for everyone to worship with them today. Worship service begins at 9:45 a.m. and you may join them via conference call by calling 253-993-3761. Pastor Johnny Dean and members of New Poplar Spring extend you a cordial invitation to worship with them. Christ Chapel Unadilla Weekly Food Pantry is open every Saturday from 9 a.m. until 12 o'clock noon. You may contact Mrs. Jeanette Taylor, Pastor Relief Trainer, for more information. The Ebenezer Baptist Church service will be held via conference call. The call-in number is 346-248-7799. The pass code is 228-890-9553. Worship service begins at 11 o'clock a.m. Deacon Morris McClendon, Chairman. Reverend Samuel Stokes is the pastor. Everyone has a cordial invitation to worship with the Greater Mars Tabernacle Baptist Church today. Worship service begins this morning. You may join them via Facebook Live at 9 o'clock a.m. Tuesday, midday prayer conference service is held at 12 o'clock noon. Thursday, prayer meeting and Bible study is held at 6 o'clock p.m. The call-in number for the conference call is 229-329-7611. Mother Lucille Shazer, Church Mother. Deacon Arthur L. Parker, Chairman of Deacons. Dr. K.M. Williams is the pastor. The Emmanuel Missionary Baptist Church invites everyone to pull up and praise with them each Sunday morning beginning at 10 o'clock a.m. They are located at 1818 U.S. Highway 41 North, Cordele, Georgia. Reverend Gregory Williams and the Emmanuel family extend you a cordial invitation to worship with them. Everyone has a cordial invitation to worship with the St. King Baptist Church. During their worship service, Pastor Woody Burnham and the church family extend you a very cordial invitation to worship with them during their regular worship services. The Mount Zion First African Baptist Church conference call schedule is Sunday morning beginning at 10 o'clock a.m. Prayer Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 12 o'clock noon. Bible study is held each Wednesday at 5 o'clock p.m. Deacon Joe Wedges is the chairman of deacons. Dr. Dan James III is the pastor. The Gethsemane Baptist Church invites everyone to worship with them via Zoom call Sunday beginning at 10:30 a.m. each Sunday morning. The number is 312-626-6799. The meeting ID number is 810-300-14192. The passcode is 435708. Bible study is held each Wednesday at 7 o'clock p.m. and you may join them via conference call by calling 229-234-9066. Or you may contact any member of the Gethsemane Baptist Church for more information. Mother Mary Butler is the church mother. Deacon Johnny Wilson is chairman of deacons. Reverend Cecil Straughter is the pastor. Everyone has a cordial invitation to worship with the New Oak Grove Baptist Church today in in-house worship service. Face covering is required. Deacon Alonzo Jones is the chairman of deacons. Reverend W.W. Wilson is the pastor. The Davis Chapel CME Church family extends a cordial invitation for you to worship with them each second and fourth Sunday mornings beginning at 10 o'clock a.m. Face mask is required. Brother Ruby Barron is the chairman of stewards. Reverend Arnell Wilburn is the pastor. The Mount Olive Baptist Church, Warwick, Georgia, will hold conference this morning, Sunday, March 27th at 10 o'clock a.m. All members are encouraged to attend. Sister Catherine Buford is the reporter. Minister E. Rogers is the meeting host. The Tri-Stone Baptist Study Church of Americus, Georgia, invites everyone to worship with them each Sunday from 10 a.m. until 11 o'clock a.m. And this comes from Minister Ward. Freedom Harvest Worship Center of Leslie, Georgia, Spring Revival will begin Tuesday, March 29th through Thursday, March 31st at 7:30 p.m. Our program will be Tuesday, the New Beulah Baptist Church and Pastor Reverend Christopher Perry. Wednesday, Mount Pleasant and Zion Hope Holiness Church and Apostle Henry Holsey. Thursday, Shady Grove and New Zion Church and Minister Belinda Tyson. Dr. Georgia Deriso and the members of Freedom Harvest extend you a cordial invitation to worship with them. The McAfee Grove Baptist Church of Leesburg invites everyone to worship with them during their family night service on Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m., small class study on Thursday at 7 p.m., Sunday morning worship service is held at 9 o'clock a.m., and you may join them using the number by calling the number 425-436-6341. The McAfee Grove Church Family Annual Family Feast will be held on Saturday, April the 2nd at 11 o'clock a.m. For more information, please call 229-854-5769. Dr. Robert L. Morgan Sr. is the pastor. The Antioch Baptist Church of Americus, Georgia will celebrate the 6th anniversary of Pastor Ricky and First Lady Veranda Clad. The anniversary will be held on Sunday, April the 3rd at 11 o'clock a.m. Dinner will be served. Deacon David Laster is the chairman of deacons. Pastor Ricky Clad is the pastor. The Fort Valley State University Crisp County Head Start and Early Head Start are now accepting applications for the 2022-23 school year. If you are interested, please visit our Head Start Center located at 1110 South 12th Street or the Early Head Start located at 615 West 15th Avenue to pick up an application to discuss items needed for registration. If you should have any questions prior to your visit, feel free to contact Ms. Keandria Towns or Ms. Laquita Jen Wright for Head Start by calling them at 229-276-9880 or Ms. Shayla Askew for Early Head Start at 229-273-7452. The Hope for the City Scholarship Program 2022 applications are now being accepted and must be in by May 15, 2022. Two $1,500 scholarships will be awarded. To qualify, you must be a Crisp County High School senior, must plan to attend college in the fall of 2022. For more information, please contact Mr. Nicholas Morgan at 229-917-8511 or Mr. Vito Stretchin at 410-404-5327. Everyone has a cordial invitation to worship with the Mount Calvary Baptist Church today. You may join us via Facebook Live at 10:30 a.m. for our morning worship service. Deacon Leon Spears is the chairman of deacons. Reverend Isaac H. Owens is the pastor. And this morning we have a very special birthday wish that we would like to extend this morning. We have, we're going to put up the picture at this time. We would like to extend a very happy 96th birthday to Mother Ella Payne, who will be celebrating her 96th birthday on April the 1st. Happy birthday to her, and we pray that God will bless her. This comes from the Robinson family and all of her many friends as they say happy birthday to Mother Ella Payne, who will be celebrating her, of Americus, Georgia. She will be celebrating her 96th birthday on April the 1st. Happy birthday, Mother Payne, and all the citizens of the Americus area in Sumter County and everywhere say happy birthday to you. We pray that God will bless you as you celebrate your 96th birthday. Happy birthday to Mother Ella Payne of Americus, Georgia. That will conclude our announcements for today.
Our first section this morning is dedicated to the following in loving memory of Mr. Theodore Lemons, who would have celebrated his birthday March 25th, dedication requested by the Butts and Dempsey family, gone but not forgotten. In loving memory of Mrs. Brenda Kellogg Hicks, who would have celebrated her birthday March 27th, dedication requested by the entire Hicks, Kellogg, Reeves family and Miss Valerie Levant, gone but not forgotten. Our first selection this morning is dedicated to the following. Happy birthday to Miss Mary Frances Davis, who will celebrate her birthday on Monday, March 28th, dedication requested by Mr. Joseph Glenn. Happy birthday to Miss Bessie Fisher, who will celebrate her birthday Monday, March 28th. Dedication requested by Miss Mary Frances Davis. And special birthday wishes goes out from the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Happy birthday to our own Deacon Donald K. Hamilton Jr., who will celebrate his birthday Wednesday, March 30th. Dedication requested by his beloved wife, Deaconess Alberta Hamilton, all of the children, grandchildren, and the members of the Gethsemane Missionary Baptist Church, and the management and staff of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home, all says happy birthday to our very own Deacon Donald K. Hamilton Jr. God bless you, and many, many more. Our first selection this morning is dedicated to the following: Deacon James Smith and family, Deacon Eddie Porter Jr. and family, Deacon and Mrs. Lauren Wellens and family, Miss Essie Gay and family, Miss Gwen Henderson and family, Mrs. Eddie Ruth White and family, Sister Letha Askew, church clerk and trustee of the New Oak Grove Missionary Baptist Church, the Reverend and Mrs. Dion Jones and family, Mrs. Catherine Buford and the Williams family, Deaconess Martha Cross and family, Mr. Richard and Miss Brenda Cross and family, Mr. and Mrs. Reginald Cross and family, to my neighbor, Mrs. Theron Jones and family, the entire Jones and Talbot family, Mother Dorothy Talbot and family, Mr. Johnny and Mrs. Juanita Talbot and family, Deacon and Mrs. John Stubbs and family, to the Kendrick, Woodson, and Passmore family, Deacon Bobby Fuse and family, Deacon Joed Clark and family, Deacon and Mrs. Oscar Cooks and family, and the members of the Friendship Baptist Church of DeSoto, Georgia, where he serves as chairman of the Board of Deacons, Mrs. Valerie Carter and family, Miss Sean Hutchinson and family, Mrs. Selma Jackson and family, Mr. F.D. Lawson and family, the Redding family, the Reverend R.L. and Miss Velma Dawkins and family, Miss Vernell Green Dalston family, Mrs. Willie Mae Crapp and family, Miss Willie Mae Leary and family of Hatley, Georgia, the entire Leary and Carter family of Hatley, Georgia, Miss Lucille Hillman and family of Ashburn, Georgia, Miss Vivian Fullwood and family, Mother Lenora McNeil and family, Deacon Wallace and Sister Patty Relaford and family, Mrs. Martha Ruth Westbrook and family of Araby, Georgia, Mrs. Hazel Daniels and family, Mr. Rosby Anderson and family, Mr. Mika Hardy and family, Mr. Marcus Carter and family, Miss Tia James and family, Mrs. Jasmine Smith and family, Mr. and Mrs. Jerome Anderson and family of Vienna, Georgia, Mr. Justin Ross and family, Mrs. Mary Frances Mathis and family, Mrs. Jeanette West and family, Mrs. Maddie Sue Bryant and family, Mayor and Mrs. Eddie Daniels and family, Vienna, Georgia, Mr. and Mrs. Roosevelt Lucas and family, Mr. and Mrs. Sonny Daniels and family, Deacon and Mrs. Carl Reuben Smith and family, Mrs. Fannie Mae Lester and family, Deacon Theodore Key and family, the family of the late Deacon Joseph Smith Williams of Lilly, Georgia, Miss Sakita O'Brien and family, Mr. and Mrs. John Henry Bimber and family, Mrs. Carrie Mae Holt and family, Deacon and Mrs. Eddie Clyde Allman and family, Mr. James Boston and family, Mrs. Annie Watson family, Mr. and Mrs. Larry Harris and family, Mrs. Jasper Bryant and family, the Blight family of Vienna, Georgia, Chairman Deacon and Mrs. Morris McClendon and family, Mr. E.K. Cheney and family, Mr. and Mrs. Carl Whitehead and family, and the family of the late Deacon Times Whitehead, Mr. and Mrs. W.B. Bryan and family, Mrs. Ola Bill and family, the Reverend Charles Anderson and family of Unadilla, Georgia, Deacon and Mrs. London Childs and family, Mrs. Ethel Ross and family, Mr. Evan Dawson and family, Mr. and Mrs. Anderson Jenkins and family, Mrs. Laverne Anderson and family, Mrs. Rebecca Brown and family, Mother Louise James Everett and family of Vienna, Georgia, Deacon Raymond Anderson and family, Mrs. Beulah Anderson and family, Mrs. Mary Lizzie Bryant and family, Mrs. Doretha Williams and family, Mrs. Deborah Redding and family, Mrs. Alice Oliver and family, Miss Janie Winters and family, the Reverend and Mrs. Tommy Law and family, Mrs. Ethel Perry and family, Mrs. Margaret Perry and family, the entire Perry family, the children, Mother Pearlie Mae Perry, Mrs. Calvin, Mr. Calvin Lester and family, Mrs. Betty Jean Bryant and family, the Reverend and Mrs. Layfield Buckholz and family of Unadilla, Georgia, Miss Geneva West and family, Mr. Walter Brown and family, Deacon Walter Brown and family, Mrs. Eddie Cobb and family, Mr. and Mrs. Frank Lester and family, Mr. Walter Kingdom and family, Mrs. Ethel Lee Jones and family, Vienna, Georgia, Mrs. Angela Travis and family, Miss Mary Gary and family, Mrs. Ida B. Waters and family, Mrs. Rosa Mae Caldwell and family, Miss Christine Barron and family, Miss Zeph Leggett and family, Mrs. Daisy Wiggins and family, Mrs. Linda Leggett and family, Mrs. Alberta Felder and family, Miss Cecilia Williams and family, Deacon Johnny and Miss Vera Perry and family, Mr. and Mrs. J.C. Lord and family, Mrs. Lena Wade and family, Mr. and Mrs. Dennis Everett and family, Miss Eleanor Gay and family, Mother Mary Benjamin and family, Mrs. Isaiah Ross and family, Mrs. Sam Gaston and family, Mr. William Gaston and family, Mrs. Rosa Mae McKenzie and family, the Hunt and Collier family, Mr. Lester Kennedy and family, Mrs. Donna Howard and family, Mrs. Jenny Smith and family, Deacon and Mrs. Jimmy Redden and family, Deacon and Mrs. Benny Howard and family, Mr. and Mrs. Willis C. Washington and family, the Adams family, Miss Lily Tukes and family, Mrs. Carolyn Shaw and family, Mr. Bobby Lee Royal and family, Mr. and Mrs. John Hoggrove and family, Mr. Son Marshall and family, Deacon and Mrs. Leroy James and family, Deacon Elmo James and family, Miss Alice West and family, Miss Mary B. Sutton and family, Mr. and Mrs. Lewis Maynard and family, Deacon Lonnie Anderson and family, Mrs. Rosa Howard and family, Mrs. China Ezel and family, and the staff of BJ's Diner and the entire Felton family. Our first selection for this morning.
You to know
next selection this morning is dedicated to the following: Mr. Roscoe Applin and family, Mr. and Mrs. Willie Frank Collier and family, Mr. Gus Williams and family, Miss Marion Felton and family, Deacon Lonnie Hoggerbrook and the entire Hoggerbrook family, Mrs. Sharon Chambliss and family, Mrs. Frances Chambliss and family, Miss Verdell Butts and family, Mr. James Grant and family, Miss Curtina Grant and family, Miss Debbie Reed and family, Mrs. Stephanie Grant and family, Mr. and Mrs. Jimmy Passmore and family, Mr. and Mrs. Keith Bryan and family, Mr. Denise Walker and family, Mr. Eddie Hester and family, Pineview, Georgia, Mr. and Mrs. Charles Kerr and family, Mr. and Mrs. Joshua Woodson and family, Mrs. Bernice Smith and family, Chairman Deacon and Mrs. Sammy McGill and family, Mr. and Mrs. Charles, Deacon and Mrs. Charles Glenn and family, Deacon and Mrs. Charlie Westbrook and family, the family of Mother Cornelius Jackson, Mr. and Mrs. Dwight Tennant and family, Miss Sue James and family, Mrs. Joanne Atkins and family, Mrs. Faustine Carruthers and family, Mrs. Linda Wilson and family, Ms. Donna Cobb and family, the Pastor Jimmy Felton and family, Mother Lucille Shazer, age 109, church mother of the Greater Morris Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, Deacon and Mrs. Willie Shivers and family, Mrs. Carrie Brooks and family, the Reverend and Mrs. Woody Barnum and family, Mrs. Marion Golphin and family, Mr. and Mrs. Charlie Clark and family, Stuart Calvin Clark and family, Deacon Michael Morgan and family, Deacon Henry King of the Gethsemane Missionary Baptist Church, Mr. and Mrs. Alonzo Flood and family, Deacon and Mrs. Otis Blanks and family, Mr. Carl Bryan and family, Mr. and Mrs. James Russell Brunel and family, Mrs. Janice Jones and family, Mr. Willie Frank Hayes and family, Mrs. Juanita Jefferson and family, Miss Betty Taylor and family, Mrs. Betty Oliver and family, Mrs. Diane McClendon and family, Mrs. Maggie Jackson and family, Miss Mary Hill and family, Miss Loretta Coley and family, Mrs. Geraldine Harvey and family, Mrs. Willie Bell Lawson and family, Deacon and Mrs. Samuel Mills and family, the family of the late Deacon Rufus Hoggerbrook, Mrs. Lulabelle Hill and family, Deacon and Mrs. Johnny C. Hillman and family, Mrs. Ruby Kinchins and family, Deacon and Mrs. Bobby James and family, the family of the late Mother Fannie Mae James, Mrs. Priscilla Thomas and family, Miss Helen Ray and family, Mr. and Mrs. Jesse Walker and family, Mr. Edward Johnson and family, Mrs. Trudy Mae Johnson and family, Deacon Curtis Lucas Jr. and family, Mrs. Carrie Bell Woodson and family, Miss Clara Graham and family, Mrs. Angela Jones and family, Mrs. Woodrow Bivens and family, Deacon James Beal and family, Mrs. Rubenell Anderson and family, Mr. Charlie Ray, Mr. Kenneth Staley and family, the Reverend and Mrs. Eddie Gant and family, Mr. and Mrs. Bernard Williams and family, Mrs. Annie Kerr and family, Mr. Nathaniel Kerr and family, Deacon and Mrs. Charles Harry and family, Mr. Willie Holmes and family, Mrs. Pearlie Griggs and family, Mr. Willie Jackson and family, Mr. Scotty Anderson and family, Mrs. Jackie Ridley and family, Mr. Robert Harvey and family, Mr. Sean Woods and family, Mr. Carl Ward and family, Apostle and Mrs. Morris James Jones and family, Mr. and Mrs. Tim Lockett and family, Our next selection this morning is dedicated to Mr. Mr. Cleveland R. Lemons and family, oldest staff member of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home and steward of the Bethel CME Church here in Cordele, Georgia. Our selection goes out to Mrs. Willie Pearl Reed and family, and it is certainly with the deepest regret that we make the following announcements. Miss Audrey Mae Patrick, age 63, of 1612 South 10th Street, Cordele, Georgia, died Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022, at the home of her beloved daughter. The funeral service for Mrs. Audrey Mae Patrick, age 63, will be held today, Sunday, March 27, 1 p.m., graveside at the Sunnyside Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. Her pastor, the Reverend Lorinda Ray, pastor of the beautiful Zion Baptist Church, will officiate. Mrs. Brenda K. Dardell Tatum, age 62, of 4644 Juniper Court, Lancaster, California, died Saturday, March 5th in Lancaster, California. The funeral service for Mrs. Brenda K. Dardell Tatum will be held Monday, April 4th at 12 noon at the Andersonville National Cemetery in Andersonville, Georgia. Mr. Willie Jernigan Jr., age 85, of 607 Eastview Circle, Americus, Georgia, died Thursday, March 24th at the Phoebe Sumter Medical Center in Americus, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. William Jernigan Jr., age 85, will be held Saturday, April 2nd, graveside at the Antioch Baptist Church in Plains, Georgia, with the minister selected officiating. United States Army veteran Mr. Cecil Lester Jr. of 306 Dennett Street, Unadilla, Georgia, died Friday, March 25th at Atrium Navison Health in Macon, Georgia. The funeral service for United States Army veteran Mr. Cecil Lester Jr. will be announced at a later date, pending the completion of the arrangements. Deacon Eddie B. Woodson, age 68, of 311 North 7th Street, Vienna, Georgia, died Saturday, March 26 at Piedmont-Macon Hospital in Macon, Georgia. The funeral service for Deacon Eddie B. Woodson, age 68, will be announced at a later date, pending the completion of the arrangements. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors serving Cordele and Vienna are in charge of each of these arrangements during this week. Our next and final selection for this morning is dedicated to the bereaved families whose loved ones were laid to rest during the past week. The family of United States Marine Corps veteran Mr. Dwayne L. Smith of Vienna, Georgia. The family of United States Army veteran Mr. Collie W. Hopper Sr. of Americus, Georgia. The family of United States Army veteran Mr. Harry T. Gaines of Cordele, Georgia. This selection is dedicated to the bereaved families whose loved ones will be laid to rest during this week. The family of Miss Audrey Mae Patrick of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mrs. Brenda K. Dardell Tatum of Lancaster, California, formerly of Americus, Georgia. The family of Mr. William Jernigan Jr. of Americus, Georgia. The family of United States Army veteran Mr. Cecil Lester Jr. of Unadilla, Georgia. The family of Deacon Eddie B. Woodson of Vienna, Georgia. This selection is dedicated to all of the sick and shut in, to all patients in the local and surrounding hospitals, nursing homes, and rehabilitation centers, to our beloved ministers and our devoted family members, to all retired educators, to the men and women serving in our armed forces, both stateside and abroad, to all veterans, and to everyone who listens to our program on each Sunday morning. It's a pleasure for us to bring it to you. Our program goes out in memory of our past president, Dr. Napoleon Williams. This selection goes out to my wife, Mrs. Calandra Wilkerson Parker, to my son, Jai Wilkerson Parker, and this selection goes out to my mother-in-law, Mrs. Billy Ann Hall, and family. To my brother, retired Chief Master Sergeant Norman F. Dexter, and his wife, Dr. Gwendolyn Maxine Dexter, and our grandson, Noble. To my sister, Mrs. Maddie Mae Johnson, better known as Sister Girl, and Mrs. Patsy Jackson, and her husband, Jim Jackson of Cordele, Georgia. This selection goes out to my nephew, Deacon Kenneth Smith, program chairman of the Greater Morris Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, and to our pastor, Dr. K.M. Williams, and to his wife, Sister Kathy Williams, and family. This selection goes out to Deacon S. President Cassandra Jones Jackson and family, Overseer Annie Reynolds and family, Vienna, Georgia. This selection goes out to my cousin, Deacon Emery Wright, and family of Albany and Lee County, Georgia. And to our friend and brother long-standing, the Reverend and Mrs. Johnny B. Dean, and the members of New Poplar Springs Baptist Church of Byronville, Georgia. This selection goes out to, again, to each and everyone who listens to our program on each Sunday morning. Goes out to our beloved Sister Easter May Sanders, Mrs. Annette Sanders, and Brother George Felton and family. Our final selection for this morning.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We hope you've enjoyed our program. Tune in again on next Sunday morning. Remember, in your time of need, contact the competent, capable, and dependable staff at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home.